Welcome back to the Optional Boss Podcast. We are your hosts, Josh and Tyler, and today we are going to be doing a little bit of a, I don't know, game show type thing at the end, but we're going to be discussing game prices. More so retro, of course, but Tyler, what's going on?
It's the Optional Boss Price is Right, potentially vintage video game variety hour. Wow, I'm
Can
never going to remember that
sequence.
Never. I'm never going to be able to remember all those words in sequence. I'm doing pretty swell. I am ashamed of myself as a gamer these days because I never play any games anymore, and I could blame it on a number of factors. Life is busy for many people, myself included, and I could also blame it on the fact that the only game that is allowing me to play it when I can play it is Elden Ring, and it won't let me go.
With DLC possibly around the corner.
Oh, it's gonna... If the way it feels right now, it feels like I'm not going to be done that game by the time that DLC comes out, and we don't even know when that is. So I would say I'm about 70, 80 hours into it, and
yep, that sounds about right.
I'm at the end, but it's far from ending. And if anyone who's played that game, they'll understand entirely what I mean. And the worst part is, I really want to move on to something else. I've gotten myself a handful of games recently that I just haven't even been able to boot up and see what's about, all because I can't do anything else until this is done. And it's haunting me.
I know that feeling. I know that feeling too well.
Yes, but that's not to its detriment at all. If anything, that's to its credit. Like, this game is so engrossing that, like, I have said, like, I want to put it down and I want to do something else, and I can't bring myself to do it until I have seen it through to the end.
And that's kind of part of the appeal of it. It's like, it is too much of a good thing, but at the same time, you find yourself still engrossed and want to continue.
Very much
it's
so.
Like, I need to do other stuff, but this, goddamn.
And now,
right?
if we're going to go with the very generic, which is it's not going to be my favorite of the Souls games per se. That said, though, it doesn't have to be to not be still incredible in its own right, because now, a big thing with the Souls games is how they have a certain amount of expressionism and individuality and how you can tackle it. A lot of people have different builds and different strategies, and this game takes the build and strategy individuality on one end and then expands that to the entire approach of the world. And that is insane.
Absolutely.
You can do anything in it however you would like, barring, obviously, you can't find stuff till later or whatnot. But, the variety and gameplay in that game is just absolutely astronomical. And the worst part is, I spent most of it doing the same thing, which is probably why I'm going mad. But that's, and in the little bit of gaming time, this is shameful, but accurate, those gosh darn mobile games, when I don't have much time, they get a little bit of it, and...
Oh, God.
And the worst part about it is, so I've been playing, have you heard of Monster Hunter now?
I think so, yes.
It's the same creators as Pokemon Go, and it's just Pokemon Go, but Monster Hunter. And somehow, I don't know how, but somehow, it works. It works really well. I really dig it as a Monster Hunter fan. Like, I'm a Pokemon fan, wasn't too into Pokemon Go. This is just cool.
So, how does that work? Are you capturing
No, so...
monster?
So the major gameplay loop in the Monster Hunter series is go, kill giant monster, take its parts, craft new armor and weapons, right? And
yes,
that's exactly what the gameplay loop is for this. Out in the field, instead of seeing a Pokemon to catch, you'll see a monster that you can hunt. And it'll be, you've got like 60, 70 seconds to kill this monster. I mean, it's just like combat with taps and swipes and holds and all. It's surprisingly engaging for a mobile game. But yeah, you just kill them, get the parts, and then you can craft new gear. And it's all about, like, the gameplay loop is crafting new gear as opposed to just filling an endless box with creatures. And
okay,
I'm not about to tout it as amazing by any means. It's like Pokemon Go, but honestly, for what it is, it's surprisingly cool. Yeah, so
I may check that out.
it's, you know what? It's kind of neat. And it's also, just gonna say it, probably the most user-friendly Monster Hunter game to ever exist.
More than Monster Hunter World?
See, I haven't played Monster Hunter World yet, and as much as I want to, like, I can go on about how Elden Ring is a time sink. Oh my god, Monster Hunter is absurd.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
But there's a big difference between the two and they can, like, how you invest your time, because Monster Hunter, even though it's grand in scale, is very arcadey in its approach. It's very much you're done when you're done playing. It's not you're actually done. It does have an end game, but it never really ends.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, so. But that would be, for the most part, really the only bit of gaming that I've been up to. How about yourself?
I've been up to a bit, actually. I forget what I was saying that on our last episode that I was in the middle of playing, but I finished up Sea of Stars and got platinum on it. So
yes.
if I didn't mention that I was playing that, then yes, I've been playing Sea of Stars because that came out. I was going to wait for my physical, and I said, no, I want to check this out. Yeah, because I think we were talking about trying to find your grave because you kickstarted it.
I did kickstart it, and I, alas, because of Elden Ring, haven't had a time to even have a glance at it, but I do really want to get into Sea of Stars. I've been doing a pretty good job of avoiding pretty much anything about the game as opposed to what sold me on the game initially. Like, I don't even think I watched the launch trailer, and I know that it is getting the most incredible praise. Now, is it anywhere near Chrono Trigger? I don't know, but I also don't think that would be a fair comparison to make either.
Not a fair comparison.
Heavily inspired, for sure, but...
Oh, absolutely. I don't think it's right to kind of compare games in that sense, though. No. Just because it does a lot of its own things, too.
Yeah.
Like, where kind of is inspired from Chrono Trigger is, okay, you can walk into the combats, and the combats are done right there. Right? And then you can have certain combos that you can mix with different characters. Done differently.
Not to mention, though,
Chrono Trigger.
The overall aesthetic of it, I mean, again, from what I know, which for anyone who's interested in the game, I assure you this isn't spoilery at all, because like I said, it's just what sold me on it. But, you know, even down to the little details of the miniature-esque sprites on the overworld, replicating that of Chrono Trigger, the way that your party members follow behind you out in the world, like, it knew the things that added a lot of the charm, and then did its own thing with it, right?
Absolutely.
You know, these aren't all things that are exclusive to Chrono Trigger, but, you know, you put them all in the same pot. Hey, you've got one of the greatest games to ever exist.
And the characters are really good. Won't go into the characters in detail or anything by any means. We're going to stay spoiler-free because I'm pretty sure if I did spoil things, Tyler would be kicking my ass right now.
I'd be pretty upset about it, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not going to do that.
I'll spoil
go play Sea of Stars.
Yeah, if we didn't mention it in the last episode, assuming we were talking about it or not, don't remember. Yeah, I'm in it, and I don't want to know about it until I find myself in it.
Yes.
Spoilers, I'm dead.
Never did find your grave, but I found your name in the credits. So
that is really cool. I'm actually quite pleased with that little snippet. But
no, I was a backer. I never found my credits.
Yeah, well, were you? See, you purchased yours differently than mine, so I don't actually know what the.
I was part of the backer kit, so I should be in the credits somewhere. I just don't know where. And I've looked, and I forget what name I put under.
Maybe you can contact them and see if you can be put in a patch, and then you can say you've been patched into a game. How
about we just get them on here to talk about Sea of Stars one day?
That would be so cool. They're Canadian, if I'm not mistaken, or at least the studio is based out of Montreal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we'd be able to communicate, just language barriers, right?
Someone
I don't know.
Yeah. Ventures for the future, hopefully. Catch us in episode 79 when we're talking... I can't
Sea of Stars, finally.
What was the name of the developer?
Sabotage Studios.
That's it. That's right. Yeah, let's see when we finally interview Sabotage. But Sea of Stars, I'd say. So verdict, good. Yes, check it out.
Fantastic. Probably gonna be my game of the year.
Ooh, that's big praise. I don't.
That might be a bit of spoiler.
I don't know if I think about what determines that for myself, but we'll find out later this year. Stay tuned, people.
So yeah, because we plan on doing the Bossies, the second annual Bossy Awards.
Second annual, people. Think about that. That's pretty cool.
We do it 2 years in a row. It has to be annual now.
That's how it works. And then
aside from Sea of Stars,
for the fifth one, can we do what Devil May Cry did and put out this really crappy 5th anniversary edition? Things to look forward to, people. Things to look forward to. But yes, after Sea of Stars.
Just going to be audio of us clicking buttons very, very fast.
I like it. Behind the scenes, it's just a picture of the inside of my fucking closet.
By that point, it's going to be the inside of my fucking thumb because it's button mashed too hard.
Oh.
So aside from Sea of Stars, I also did Blasphemous 2.
Ooh, the sequel to the thing we just talked about.
Yeah, so I like it. I quite enjoyed my time with it. Do I hold it up to Blasphemous 1 level? I don't know.
Now, I feel like it's going to be one of those games, like I have it, and again, going to curse out Elden Ring here. I haven't gotten to play it because of that yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. I have seen how it's still very much blasphemous, but it also does a lot of its own thing, which is nice to know from a sequel, right? Takes me back to when sequels that, like, you get some small mechanical changes but keep it pretty core. You got a new game all the same. It's your Mega Man X versus Mega Man X2. And like, oh my god, the dash is just incorporated. Like, improvements and modifications while still at the core being the same experience.
Well, like Blasphemous 2, you don't have the mea culpa sword anymore. You got 3 different weapons, and one's like a giant mace, one's a quick, like, rapier, and the other is an actual sword. And they all have different abilities. And I found, like, where Blasphemous 1, I was doing a lot of parrying. This, I don't know as if I really parried anything.
Interesting.
Just because I didn't find it as efficient as other things that I'm not going to bring up. So it's been out for a bit.
I will find out about it. I do now. Okay, so here's a question, because we clearly paid great homage, being our first optional boss presents to Blasphemous. It's thought of highly regarded here. Do you think Blasphemous 2 is going to get the same treatment, or we're going to pop it in an upcoming Mindy's?
It's hard to say. I honestly want to wait till I replay it, and the reason is like Blasphemous 1, I had to play a couple times before I really fell in love with it. I really enjoyed the story in Blasphemous 1. Blasphemous 2, I don't know. The story's okay. It's not as engrossing as number 1 story-wise.
The story of number 1 is really good.
It is. Whereas story of number 2 is more or less just the miracle went away and now it's back and now nobody loves it, so it's not as powerful.
Okay. That could be.
Here's a baby in the sky.
It's a baby.
It's just a baby in the sky.
Either way, I am thrilled to get into it whenever I can.
It's a good game. In my soul, that I like it more than Blasphemous 1, I'd have to revisit it. Especially when, like, the first major patch came out for it as I was playing, and it solved a lot of my gripes I had with it. And that's one of the issues with a brand new game too, right? So it's
not to mention Blasphemous was without its fair share of bugs and still has a handful today, but I also know that some have been patched out. And now I know that you mentioned that the game was lacking a New Game Plus, as where Blasphemous 1 New Game Plus was pretty essential. I mean, that's where true ending was locked behind New Game Plus. But I also know that Blasphemous 1 got, I think, 3 large content updates in total.
At least 2.
So there was
because the Amontecitas and then the true ending, but then there was another DLC that had the Miriam crossover with Bloodstain.
Yeah, and those would be the 3 biggest content updates. But those were all only accessible via New Game Plus, I'm pretty sure. So I don't know. Maybe they'll.
All aside from the Miriam.
Yep. But yeah, I believe that I wouldn't be surprised if they end up doing some DLC for Blasphemous 2 down the road. So, but I should play the base game before I start thinking about DLC.
Yes.
Yeah.
So aside from that, now that I beat that, I 100% of the map. I got the true ending, and for the most part, I got 100% the items. I think I'm at 98, and at that point, I kind of looked up what I was missing.
At that point, yeah, I think you could justify it.
I can't find, even with guides, what I am missing.
Oh no.
So I don't know if it's a bug or if there's just something like no one's 100%ed who's made a guide for it. Reason I guess that it might be a bug is looking at my time, it was at like 44 hours. And it's like, how did I have 44 hours? I've been working lots and all this kind of stuff. I haven't really had that much time. I know that for a fact, and it's like maybe idle time. When I beat the game and went back to the main menu, it had 18 hours played. And now it says it's minus 56 minutes. So I don't know how long it actually took me.
Yeah, that's not right.
Because it seems to be like a countdown from some arbitrary number. And sometimes it bounced to minus 18 minutes now, and then back to like minus 54. So I got no idea how long it took me. But I've 100% of the map. I've have all the prayers and rosary beads and altars that you can find. I've done all the side quests in it, so I don't know what I'm missing.
Isn't a verdict on which one was better.
Yeah, I'm still going to say Blasphemous 1 is my favorite.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah. I don't know.
It needs room to grow on me.
So, interesting segue from that. Do you remember when Blasphemous was really expensive and then it wasn't?
Yep.
It's kind of wild how things can affect the prices of video games with just nonsensical releases or just absurd hype.
Let's go back to that segue with a segue of a sequel of something else. The last thing that I've started finally is Final Fantasy III.
Yay! Shit, I haven't started Amori yet. I'm pretty sure that's actually going to be my next venture after Elden Ring, because we do have these challenges of ours to have.
We set these challenges up about a year ago, so...
we've got lots of time. Oh my god, it's almost November.
Yeah.
Why did we both have to pick RPGs?
Right? Although I plan on getting to mine anyways, so I'm about 3 hours in now.
A challenge isn't a challenge until it's challenging.
Fair.
Yep.
So, yeah, with Blasphemous, how it was really expensive and then it wasn't. And now the limited run version is actually starting to go up.
Oh, it is? Because I know when they announced the retail re-release, it dropped hard.
Yes.
Maybe it's just becoming a bit more of a household name now. Because I know the retail version is holding its value steady.
Yes. And the limited run version, I think I saw, and we'll actually get into some prices. This is just what I'm trying to remember when I saw it last. It was around the 150 mark.
I do remember when I checked it out at its peak. Yeah, it was about 180 or so.
Yeah, so it went down and now it's going back up. Maybe because of the release of number 2. But how about we actually dive into the topic at hand, and that is video game prices, and then we will hop into our little, I forget what you called it, and you never gave me an abbreviation, so our little name that price game at the end. So stick around, we'll be right back. So video game pricing has been like such a weird thing. There's so much I don't want to call it controversy, but it's weird because some people value what a game's worth by how many hours you can get out of it, which, I mean, I can understand from one point, but then there's also the whole retro market, which we're more focusing on today. I think but I do want to touch on the whole, like, time versus value kind of argument before we really get into the deep nitty gritty of this. Do you look at the price versus how many hours you're going to get out of a game?
No. I look at the price, whether more so level of enjoyment than length. You know, I have paid $80 or more on games that I have gotten 2 to 3 hours out of and been more than satisfied with that, versus games that I have paid 60 to 80 or even less that have hundreds upon hundreds of hours that I just don't. So I'm not very much under it's quality over quantity. Not that quantity is a bad thing if it's done right, but no, I personally am a believer of the price is justified by the I was just going to say by the value of it, which is, yes, the price is determined by the value of it. That is how pricing works. I don't know. It's kind of an enigma to explain, but I can safely say that I can finish something and then, you know, I feel like, I feel satisfied with that, or wow, I did not get my money's worth.
So I kind of look at it like, if you use the time versus money argument, like there's so many people who complain about a game not being 100 hours, and it's like, are you kidding me? That's too long for a game. I want I find that the longer a game is, usually, first off, it's going to be open world, chances are. Second off, it's that open world is usually bland, copy paste kind of messes, and you can look at Bethesda as one who does that. I can't speak on Starfield. I haven't played it. I'm glad people are enjoying it. I found it with Skyrim though. They reuse the same caves and everything. Fallout
I just don't
4.
care.
Yeah, it's
too
just
much.
If your whole exploration isn't about interesting set pieces, and it's more you spend more time traveling between those set pieces, why is there long distance?
I don't know.
Another argument. Argument.
Here's my deciding factor on that, though, is game that you have 100 hours, you get one game get 100 hours out of it, or you have a 3-hour game that you play for 100 hours.
Yep.
One sounds a little better.
One thing I really enjoyed about Elden Ring, as you're going through it right now, is I find like the traveling is actually entertaining. Like there's always something to kind of see and do and look at. And if you don't want to, by that time you've already explored that area, and there's lost graces everywhere that you can fast travel to. Yep. So there's always something to kind of keep an eye out because it's so densely packed. It's not just empty area after empty area.
No, I found a good comparison for them would be like, you played Spider-Man for PS4, right?
I have not.
No? Okay. So, another good comparison I would suppose you could say is like the towers in Breath of the Wild, but like way more of them, and they don't feel so much like just waypoints, but they feel like useful, because the Souls games, usually your checkpoints are few and far between, and every time you see a Site of Grace, you're just like, oh, thank God.
Yep.
So.
Yep, pretty much. The other argument I have for like price versus time, you ever go to the movie theater? I personally don't too often, but
I prefer not to, but I have in my lifetime at least once or twice.
When you're looking at going to the movies, it's pretty costly, and then you got your food, your popcorn that you're going to have just at that moment. You're probably spending for two of you at least $50 for a 2-hour experience.
Yeah.
So if there's a 10-hour game that you won't spend $60 on,
what is the value of time to you if this is yeah. So
and here's the thing, you buy the game, you can play it multiple times. There's games that we both have gone back to multiple times just because we really enjoy them. Yeah. That's not going to be every game, of course. Like I've only played God of War for PS4 once, for example. I also got it for $20, but 14 hours. Got my money's worth out of that. Ragnarok is still on my shelf, haven't played it, but I know it's a long game, and that's going to be worth its money. And if you look at it, time versus value, the same way that you look at a movie versus time versus value. Just people have an easier time going to a movie than buying a game.
You got to remember, there's a lot of people that aren't like us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I see the argument is too, is if you're going to use time as a measurement of worth, then you're going to have a lot of, it's almost like comparing the exchange rate of different countries, but it's different time denominations and the value of the thing the time was spent
based on. Yeah, pretty much.
It's okay. So if you were going to go that route, actually, you could spend like $200 going to an amusement park for 4-6 hours, maybe.
Yep.
So, if you're going to gauge, time, it's like, oh, yeah, well, that was a hell of an experience. It's like,
and if you're sick, if you're going to say it's because my heart rate got pumping on the rides and everything, okay, I present you Outlast. Welcome to Halloween, bitches. This will get your heart rate pumping.
Now, beyond the time denomination of the value of a game itself, though, there's also these factors, which is something that comes far more into play with our topic today, is the fluctuating prices of games that already exist. More so, the retro game market, or heck, even branching into the modern game market, but just getting into the world of limited print and things like that. It's amazing how the price of a game is rarely the price of a game.
Oh, absolutely. And this is, so I'm a firm believer of if there is a way for you to purchase it where the actual publisher and developer gets the money for it, by all means, go that route.
Yes.
If you can't give the original makers of said IP or product the money, bootleg it.
Yeah. Now,
don't care, because I'd rather give them the actual money.
I have no shame in emulation, but I also like having things on my shelf.
Yes, absolutely.
And then there's also, and we get into this really weird aspect, so like some games fluctuate in price because there's, the aspect of quote-unquote game preservation, right? To have that physical, tangible thing as opposed to a digital license that will one day expire. That's something that can often
the servers go down.
Yeah, and especially, too, that's when stuff like scarcity comes more into question. But it's usually games of a determinate caliber that have those values. And another thing that might just... Trends. Trends are stupid. People who may be, relatively in the gaming space and news and whatnot. And we mentioned this a couple times on this here show, I'm sure. Fuck WADA, but...
Yep, fuck WADA.
The infamous... I don't even remember what the price of it. Was it a little over $1 million, or was it an absurd several $1 million Mario 64?
The Mario 64, I think, was closing in on $1 million. I know the original Mario, they're wanting $1 million for, because they even got so the guy brought it in on Pawn Stars, the original Super Mario Brothers, and said, "Oh, I'm looking. This is an official graded 9.8 version of it, some kind of bullshit." And they said, "Oh, let's call in an expert." And they called in the head guy of WADA. I don't know his name. He's Dickel McGee. And
that works.
Yep. And they said, "Oh yeah, this is close to $1 million." As it turns out, the guy trying to sell it and the head of WADA already knew each other. They knew exactly what
that's a conflict of interest right there.
Yep. The whole WADA game, it's just bad. It's just absolutely
it's
horrible.
Very much like one of those, wow, what a coincidence. Special guest star Bruce Willis. What are you doing here? So WADA is super shady, and video game grading. Now, I understand collectible grading. I watched card stuff, collectibles. I'm a nerd. I like to collect stuff. So I do understand, grading can be an important thing, especially with older stuff like comic books and whatnot. It's nice to know the condition. I don't like the idea of these things being sealed forever, though.
Yeah, because I kind of feel like it should be losing value.
Not even that. I like to have
I'll never
my
understand
stuff.
it. I like to be able to use my stuff.
There's only, in my retro collection, I have 1 or 2 sealed games. And they're mostly sealed because I haven't really gotten around to playing what they are.
And one of them is Wargroove.
No, Wargroove is sealed on my shelf. But, What an interesting. It's not that I don't like it. It's just when am I going to do it? When am
Yeah.
I going to care to do it? Oh,
I get it.
no. It just got a
Mine's the
sequel,
exact
too.
same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
The whole point I'm getting at with the whole WADA thing in the Mario 64, for a while there, I mean, it was for a copy of Mario 64 that could have been beaten into the ground. They jumped up to like $200.
Yeah. And
And
it's stupid.
they normalized eventually, but there's a wild amount of things that can controversy or banning that can get the price of a game all sorts
Skyrocket.
Yeah, it's insane, which is why it's so random to think what costs what.
Yeah, because there's things that you look at and you question why it costs so much. So one quick example that's kind of notorious. It's not actually on my list for the end, but Earthbound.
Okay.
Earthbound famously didn't sell that well.
I felt like this game would come up in this conversation.
Yeah, it's one of those more rare gems, right?
It's the known rare gem, yeah.
Yeah. So its price being inflated, I can kind of I do understand because it is more rare than your Super Mario World, right?
So do you know the prices of these right now?
Earthbound, no, it's flipped around so much. I did see it for $350.
Okay.
Which has gone down because start of COVID, it was around the 600 for a loose copy.
I recall this, yes.
So, and of course, that's around the time that I got really into it, and it's like, well, I'm never going to own that, and that's why I have a bootleg on my. That's why I have a bootleg.
And that's another thing actually that we can throw into this conversation as well. Like it's more relevant to more modern games, but at the same time, stuff that's out of print and out of stock. So it happens. They all sell out. Just like recently I wanted a copy of Moon for the Switch, which is like a port of a PS1 game that is actually not dissimilar to something like Earthbound. Apparently it's very different, but a quirky, obscure RPG, all the same.
Yep.
Now it's gone, and like cheapest prices I found are double than what it sells for, and it's still a game that's like came out within the last 2 years.
So I know we talked about limited print games, so limited run, super rare games, whatnot. Where I don't really agree with their practices per se, because I think I should be able to just go to a store and buy something.
Yeah.
I also appreciate they are around because there's a lot of games that are on my shelf that I wouldn't have a physical version of if it wasn't for those companies.
It's very much one of those things where I like the fact that, yes, I can get these physicals, be they limited or not. And I'm also actually kind of a fan of they sell as many as people want to buy. It's a very smart business model that, like, you know, in the future, and it does cause FOMO and all that, but, like, it's better than, oh, geez, the God knows how many copies of, well, if we're going to use an infamous example of, like, Atari ET that just end up as garbage, right?
Yep.
So,
and then you got Nintendo doing what they did. You got what Nintendo did with Super Mario 3D All-Stars.
Dumping it on digitally onto 3DSs? Oh, 3D All-Star. Oh.
3D All-Stars, where they made it limited in stores for a limited time.
Yeah, limited print, and then it's never coming back again.
It's
and
like,
then they ripped it from the digital store, though. That's the most messed up part about it.
Wait, did they?
Yeah.
Oh, what the fuck?
You didn't know that? Yeah, no, they ripped the Mario All-Star 3D All-Stars off of the digital store. That was one of the big parts of the controversy. And actually, like, copies of 3D All-Stars are going up to, like, 120 on the minimum now, because that's the only way to get it.
I was going to say, I saw them around 120 now. So that makes more sense on why it's 120.
Isn't it dumb?
It's so dumb.
Isn't it dumb that it makes you glad you got it?
I mean, yes, I plan on getting it anyways, but oh my god.
But still.
What the hell?
Malicious practices, and the worst part is they are going in the direction we all fucking knew it would.
Yep. Well, it's like Best Buy said that they're going to stop selling physical movies and DVDs and stuff.
Did they say that they
possibly
were going to
games?
Stop sucking too? Because they're pretty good at that.
They're pretty bad.
There goes the Best Buy sponsorship.
I don't care. You know what? The Best Buy in the States carries limited run games.
That is cool.
Canada doesn't.
I wish we could say the same. Our at least our local one is lucky to even carry games.
Oh, they had the game box on the shelf. You bring it up to the cashier, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't actually have this.
Yeah.
Let me just put this back on the shelf." It's like, fuck you.
But
something else that we need to mention is we are talking Canadian prices here.
That's who we are and where we are, so it's what we buy things with. Deal with it.
We could, yeah. Sorry, Americans. Sorry, those Great Britons.
I mean, it's
Ireland.
our reputation for our country to be saying sorry, so we're just par for the course.
Yeah, we're doing it. Have a tidbit. We're sorry.
Sorry. Yes. You said you have quite the list of games.
Yeah, so I got 10.
I cobbled together 6, and so let's give a little rundown of the show where everything's made up and the points don't matter. What a great
That's
show.
theft.
It's borrowing. He can ask for it back when he wants it back. He's not using it right now.
Isn't it a lady host now?
I don't know. I don't watch TV. But yes, we are essentially doing a kind of, I don't know, mockish game show. We're just messing around here with some information, and so we're gonna name a game and talk a little bit about that game, some detail, what it's for, who made it, what have you. Maybe some interesting tidbits on the side, and then the other person gets to guess what they think that's really going for roughly about now. So This episode will age like milk.
It will. It'll age before it's even up in the air.
Fantastic. But I also know people like hearing it. So maybe it's just me. I don't know. I like numbers and, value denominations. Like I said, I watch the stuff about the trading cards and see what the shiny cardboard goes for. But I can go back to being a child on the old PBS watching Antiques Roadshow, and I don't know what these things are, but then it's just they're talking about this, and I don't care. Tell me how much it is. Tell me how much it is. It's like, oh, this plate turns to be worth $930. Wow, that's amazing. I don't know. People just get excited when they're told prices.
I don't know why. I just immediately, when you brought up the Antique Roadshow, I just thought of The Simpsons and the antique gummy that Homer steals.
Oh, the Gummy Venus?
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's basically we're gonna talk about some games, and then the other one's gonna go this much, and we're gonna say if we're relatively in the ballpark or way off.
Yep, we're doing a bit of a guessing game, and it would be cool to get some people involved in this, but we're working with what we got, and we are recording actually the day it's launching. So
this is how we'll get people involved. Guess along at home, folks.
Yes.
All right.
This is how you get sued. Take a drink every time we're wrong, folks.
Or we infringe on someone's copyright, which I'm sure I've done a few times in this episode. But yeah, since you've got a few extras, let's you start things off. What's a game you got?
All right. So it's called Arrow Fighters. And this is going to be actually the most... I'm going to give it a little bit away, but this is probably the most priciest one on my list here. Okay. It's for Super Nintendo, and it was actually an arcade game that was brought over.
AERO Fighters?
AERO Fighters.
Okay.
So it's... what do you call it? One of those bullet hell flying tigers or...
shoot 'em up.
Yeah, shoot 'em up. So, and you had different places that you could play as, and depending on where you play, there's 4 different environments, so like city, a war zone, things like that. And you could bring in 2 players, and the SNES version actually looks like the arcade version, like spot for spot. But that's all it is. It's just a shoot 'em up, vertical scrolling shoot 'em up, like Flying Tigers.
Okay. And so once again, who published this? Who made it?
So I forget the company or the publisher. The people who made it were actually under contract to make 3 games, and they only did 2, and I forget what the other one was. I came prepared, but it's McOrver.
Okay, well, I'm not about to have any backing information about that.
No.
So this is a game that sounds kind of familiar. I have a pretty extensive knowledge of the SNES library. Not about its prices, God no, but I do know it's a pretty generic side-scrolling shoot-'em-up, right?
Yep, just vertical scrolling.
Yep, and now I do know that die-hard shoot-'em-up fans Some of those games are pretty pricey. And
Yep.
because they pumped a lot of these games out, so like the ones who know the good ones, and maybe this is one of the good ones, or just super obscure, they can command quite the hefty price tag.
So I guess we should say, are you going to guess both loose and complete in box?
Yeah, so I'm going to guess loose first.
Okay.
And so my first guess, you said this is a pretty extreme price, right?
Yep. So I kind of gave you a hint on it, but
Yeah, well,
whatever.
like we don't have to give details of it, but you kind of said this was. So I'm
Yep.
gonna say loose, $400.
Okay.
Okay, so that's my first guess. What do we got for loose?
You want me to give the price, or you want me to say higher or lower?
Now give me the price, and that'll help me gauge complete. But how close am I?
Okay. You are way off.
Oh,
It
no.
is $1,530
For loose?
for loose.
Holy shit! Wow.
This is what we mean. Like, some of these games are just, you're never going to own it. It's a waste of money.
So this is the reason why I wanted to know loose is so it would give me a better idea for complete. And I mean, that's an expensive complete game. So for that to be loose, like so I didn't have this on here, but that's like the price of something like Hagane. And Hagane is like a Blockbuster exclusive, and loose, yeah, it's about like $1,300. So I'm gonna
So
say
this
complete.
is even more expensive.
Yeah, I'm gonna say complete. This is probably makes it tricky to guess now.
Yep.
6,100.
Less.
Less.
Yes. So 4,248.
Damn, I should have went with my gut with the 4,000 range.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, no, that was one that I had no possible knowledge on its pricing, and hell, I'm not surprised why. I've probably never been in the vicinity of this game before.
No, it's stupid.
So, I gotta say mine is a little bit more homegrown, if you will, like a little closer to home, but maybe a bit more accessible to a lot of people. So I went with some picks that, like, it's not your dime store variety, it's not like your Super Mario Worlds and stuff like that, but they're games that you might have seen, like, at a buddy's house, or someone might have rented for a weekend or something, right? Not super obscure, but not super common.
Arrow Fighter, I have seen the arcade cabinet for.
Okay. Interesting. I'm not a fan of the vertical shmups myself, so it could keep its price tag, and if not, I'm going to emulate it. Just moral of the story, folks: you don't have to pay if you're not paying someone.
These are stupid prices.
So my first pick is a Super Nintendo game, one I had as a child, actually. Played a lot of, and it is by the prolific Capcom. And so when you think of Capcom for the SNES, what do you think value-wise? They're usually...
Value-wise?
Yeah, like, they usually command a bit of a price, but they're not, like, overtly expensive, unless it's something like Mega Man X3 or something.
So it's funny, because whenever I think Capcom for the Super Nintendo, I think about what I owned, and that was Mega Man X.
Not the particularly expensive game.
No,
it's nice, which is good, because people should play it if they can, and owning it makes it that much better. But no, my pick is actually Final Fight 2.
Okay.
Yeah, and so for those who don't know, the Final Fight games are a series of side-scrolling beat-em-ups. They've often been compared to Streets of Rage on the Sega Genesis. It would be like Sega had Streets of Rage, and Super Nintendo had Final Fight. And Final Fight 1 is notorious in the rare collecting market because of a game called Final Fight Guy. And it was like a Blockbuster exclusive, and he had a specific character. One of those situations, right?
Yep.
Final Fight 2 is just a regular sequel. So, given that...
And Final Fight 1 didn't do too good, did it?
It was incredibly successful, however... So, because it was an arcade game, and the Super Nintendo was an arcade conversion, and I believe it was single-player only, and missing a character, which would have been Guy. So the almost updated version later would have been Guy, but they also removed a character so it has an interesting story behind it. And yeah, like the specific Guy version was the expensive one, as where this, they improved it a bit, added co-op. This was actually made for the Super Nintendo, so like it more so found its footing by Final Fight 2.
Yep.
So yeah, any guesses on a loose copy?
For a loose copy, Final Fight. It's Final Fight 1?
Final Fight 2.
Final Fight 2.
Yes. There are 3 in the series, if that for some reason helps.
It does not. I'm
No.
going to guess around the $60 mark.
You know what? You're not terribly far off. It's about $70 for a loose copy of Final Fight 2. So like, it's still not cheap.
I was going to say 70.
But yeah, like on the I don't want to say affordable, but attainable spectrum of retro game prices, right? You know, I've dropped at least that much on a SNES game before, I'm sure. And now complete. What do you think we might go for a complete in box? And when we say complete in box, we mean it has the game, the box, and the manual. Maybe if you're lucky, the little inserts and whatnot. But we're not going super hardcore. But we're not talking like sealed brand new in box here.
No.
We're talking about the stuff that Josh and I would get ourselves.
We're talking about the standard CIB, which is cartridge, instruction, box.
Yeah.
So for a complete in box version, if it's about 70, I would guess I'm going to say about 190.
Yeah, you're good ways off. Obviously not as off as I was with Arrow Fighter. That was absurd. But no, complete in box copy goes for about $300.
Oh, okay.
It commands a bit of a price, right? It's one of those
that could have gone either way because Capcom.
Because Capcom, yes, because they pumped out a lot of copies of some stuff, not a lot of copies of other stuff. I'd say it sits in the realm of pricing of decently respected but not particularly rare SNES game, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So that would be my what do you got up next?
All right, so this is going to be a I don't know if I should do my list in order or not, but I'm going to continue. So this is kind of a cop-out one. It's something that you buy. It is a cartridge, and it was made by Nintendo. It's the Super Game Boy player.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the hell this would be for in box.
So, for those who don't know what the Super Game Boy player is it's just a little cartridge that you can plug in a Game Boy game into and play it on your Super Nintendo. So you can blow it up.
No. You are not doing that explanation justice. I don't know. I got to step in as the Game Boy guy here.
Yep.
It is an entire original Game Boy crammed into a SNES cart just without screen and speakers.
Yes.
The Super Game Boy
that is the most.
It is the most insanely impressive piece of tech for its time. It's so cool, all to just downgrade your Super Nintendo. Mind-blowing that it exists. It's a demake machine. That's so fucking cool.
It was great.
Yeah. And I know that when I got my Super Game Boy, I want to say they were going for about $30. And now this would have been a good couple years before. Something we haven't mentioned yet. COVID made these prices explode. I don't know, everyone was trapped in at home and they just wanted to start buying vintage video games. So there's a lot of things, the prices just kind of shook the market.
Or they started scalping to make a buy.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too. People want to capture their nostalgia, and people are like, well, you're going to have to pay, kid. So I'm going to ballpark it at about like $55 for a loose Super Game Boy. Okay.
You are actually over. You were closer on how much you paid before. $37.
You know what? I like that. It's still pretty affordable because it's a really cool piece of tech, especially too that like some certain Game Boy games had actual Super Game Boy specific functionality where they'd have special borders or sometimes just a little bit more color. Donkey Kong 94 being a great example of this.
So a little bit of trivia for you and a little bit more technical.
Yeah.
So depending on how much of a technical snob you are, the clock speed in the Super Game Boy player is actually slower than an actual Game Boy. So the games actually run slower.
You know what? I could actually believe that.
So sounds are not the same as you get on a Game Boy and all that kind of stuff.
Wild. That kind of sucks.
So complete in box.
Complete in box, because it's a pretty interesting peripheral. I'm going to say 180.
Okay. 89.
Fuck. That's surprisingly affordable. You know what? I might keep my eye out for a complete in box Super Game Boy in that case, because that's really cool.
As the Game Boy guy, I would be surprised if he didn't.
Yeah, no, that's actually I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's
I
not
don't
too
know.
bad.
I don't know
It's
if
quite
I
the
ever.
contrast.
Yeah, I didn't think I knew anyone who had a Super Game Boy as a kid, but I knew that they were a thing, and so I wouldn't have guessed that they were particularly readily available. So
Yeah, so I still have mine from when I was a kid.
nice. Yeah, like I picked up one secondhand, so I have one, just not in a nice box to put on the shelf and stay trapped forever in my
Oh,
collection.
no.
Um,
What do you got next?
Interesting. Yeah, I was going to say, interesting that you picked a peripheral. Mine is not a peripheral. However, a peripheral is part of it, kind of.
Boktai? Or not?
No, I was thinking about putting Boktai on this list, actually, but I went with something that would be a little bit more digestible for the audience. Boktai is just nuts, but you're not going to find anything like that. No, I actually went, and I also wanted to touch on a particular franchise that, no matter how fucking common these games are, they command one hell of a resale price nowadays.
So this is Pokemon oriented.
It sure is.
Pokemon Pinball.
No, not Pokemon Pinball, which
Okay.
actually, except for some of the more really obscure ones, the spin-offs actually aren't the most expensive. It's just the mainline games that start getting a stupid price. So
Yep.
my choice is for the Game Boy Advance. And so a very common thing for the Game Boy Advance Pokemon games is Pokemon Emerald is like the gold standard for Game Boy Advance Pokemon games. And for a lot of people, just the best one, which is why it's not my pick.
It is pretty expensive too. And a lot of fakes out there.
Oh, there's so many fake Pokemon games. People, if you're looking to buy a secondhand copy of Pokemon anything for Game Boy Advance, hell, almost Pokemon anything, do your research. There's a lot of bootlegs floating around. But no, this game that I have chosen is actually Pokemon Fire Red, which is the remake of Red for the Game Boy Advance. So it has enhanced features.
Okay.
It's been brought up to Gen 3, and I mean, it's a Pokemon game, right? It's not super mainline, but it's a remake of one of the most beloved in the franchise.
Yep.
Here's where things...
And I actually have it on my shelf.
Surprised that you do, but it is one of the better ones to have, that's for sure. Now, here's where things get a little interesting about it, though. This is a big difference between the standalone version itself, like just the cart, or having it complete in box. Because Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green came with an additional peripheral.
Oh.
Yeah, so they came with the wireless link cable.
Oh.
Yeah, so not unlike how when you bought like Donkey Kong 64 or something, it would give you the expansion pack. Like, it wasn't required, but it was just a neat thing, right? And as far as I'm aware, one of the only ways you could get the wireless link cable for the Game Boy Advance. So, with that being said, what do you think a loose copy of Pokemon Fire Red goes for?
So I'm assuming the loose copy would not have the adapter.
Just cartridge. Yeah, just cartridge. Because it's not necessary to play the game. It just did come with the game, right?
Yeah. I'm going to guess... it's Pokemon. Pokemon games always go for more expensive. I'm going to guess around 80.
You're a good chunk off with that one. Loose copy of Fire Red goes for about $130.
Okay.
It's not cheap.
About $50 off.
It's still one of the quote unquote cheaper of the second hand. Well,
yes.
I don't know. Some of the 3DS ones are pretty cheap, but they're still starting to climb. And now, knowing the differences between the two, what do you think a complete in-box copy goes for? And this would, yes, include the wireless link cable.
Yes. I would guess probably about $550.
Little over. A good chunk over, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, complete copy with that goes for about $400. So, not cheap, but not goddamn expensive.
Better than I thought, but
more than I'm going to pay, realistically. But we're not getting into the thousands. We're getting into good couple $100, though. So, and it's Pokemon. Like you said, Pokemon commands quite the price. Now, there was a re-release, and I didn't actually get the price down for this, but there was a greatest hits Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green without the wireless adapter.
Okay.
But I wanted to do that one, just because it was the original release.
It's very complicated.
It makes things a little spicy. So, what do you got next?
My next one, let's go with The Misadventures of Tron-Bonne for the PS1. This is a Capcom game. So this is one I'm glad I have in my collection.
I'm aware.
I wish I was smart enough to keep my PlayStation. I think I mentioned this before. Like, fuck, I'm such a dumb kid. I hate past me.
Whatever. You still have the disc. At the end of the day, it's the disc that's all that matters.
I do. And this, since I first found its original price, well, I would say original price. It's resale price quite a few years ago versus last year versus now. It has fluctuated so much. I'm
curious. Did you know it was expensive before I told you?
No.
Damn it. It's not like I could actually rip you off on something like that, but still.
Yeah. So okay, let's do this. When you told me it was expensive,
you thought like $80, something like that expensive?
Yeah, and when we looked it up then, it was about $150.
That's not the case now.
So it did go back down to about $99.
Yep.
And it's gone up since.
Yep.
So The Misadventures of Tron, it is a spin-off of the Mega Man Legends games on PS1 and Mega Man 64.
It's a spin-off of a spin-off.
It's a spin-off of a spin-off. You play as Tron Bonne and her little Lego rip-offs. And they're the bad guys of... The Tron family is the bad guys of... the Bonne family is the bad guys of the Legends series. They're like sky pirates.
They're also kind of like the lovable buffoon kind of villains. They don't quite get it right.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
They're the Team Rocket of Mega Man.
Team Rocket's actually a very good way to describe what
the
Bond family is like, yes.
And this is essentially your, what's his name? Do you remember? I forget if it's a brother.
The dad?
Is it the dad?
Oldest way, so it was Teasel, Tron, and Bon.
Teasel.
Yes.
Okay, Teasel. Teasel is kidnapped, and Tron Bonne has to make up a large sum of money to pay off the debt to free him.
Yep.
And so the entire game is trying to make this debt and work. And it's a little barbaric because there's a whole torture zone in it where you torture these little Lego ripoffs.
Oh, Tron Bonne's a fantastic game because it's like part Mega Man Legends in its core, and then it's got like 3 or 4 different kind of like almost mini game kind of things, and you can do them in any order to progress the plot because you're just getting money.
Yep, that's all it's about. Is you're trying to get money and free Teasel.
It's a weird.
And then there's some other stuff happens. It's very weird.
I liked it. I thought it was a good time. And funny enough about that game, so I don't have it, regrettably. But I did get to play it, actually. A friend of mine in high school lent it to me, and obviously would have never known it became commanded the price that it does now. But his copy was pretty scratched up. So one of the mini games didn't work. And I want to say it was like the block pushing mini game that there is.
Okay.
So, but the game is done in a way that, sure, for completion and getting all the money, you would have to do everything. But you don't actually have to do everything to complete the game, which was super lucky in my case.
Yes.
So I've experienced it. I like it. And if I had to guess loose nowadays, I'm going to shoot out a number, and that number is $260.
Okay, you are off by quite a bit.
Really?
Yes.
Is it gone?
Loose copy is $341.
Oh, my heart.
So with that knowledge, how much for a complete in-box? Now, I should also say the complete in-box version came with a second disc. And that was a official Mega Man Legends 2 demo disc.
Yep. That demo alone's probably going to go for a couple $100 now. I'm going to say complete is about $950.
Okay, you have overshot quite a bit. It is $683.
That's still not cheap.
So that is almost double the loose.
Oh. And that's kind of... So I found like you're sealed and or not sealed, loose and complete 2 to 4 times the price, more often than not.
Yep.
So
usually
that's not.
So
not
in order to get Tron Bonne, you gotta have your own misadventures beforehand.
Holy hell, do you ever? That game will cause you debt. So my next one, this one's a pretty obscure choice, and I gotta weave a bit of a tale about this one. So before you can get any kind of grasp. So
300.
we're not there yet. But, funny enough, there is a 300 in what this game's for, because this is for the Xbox 360.
Ah.
Yeah, so we're getting into weird collector territory, because the 360 isn't the most collectible, but, I mean, it's in the PS3 generation now, and shit's getting really expensive for that. So, like, it just takes, like I said, trends. Trends can really affect what causes prices to increase for these systems, right?
And it seems to be about a year or a generation behind.
Yeah.
That things start getting expensive.
So, this game is... Do you know anything about a game called Blue Dragon?
Does it have another name?
Maybe in Japanese.
Okay. It's not what
or
I'm
it might have a tagline. It might be like Blue Dragon Spirits Awaken or something like that. I can't remember. But so Blue Dragon is, I think, published by Enix? No, it might actually be independent, because it is Mistwalker Studios' first game. Now, do you know who Mistwalker Studios is?
I recognize the name, but no, I have no idea.
So when Hironobu Sakaguchi, the guy who was like pretty much the head of Final Fantasy, left Square, he went to form Mistwalker Studios.
Okay.
And so this was around the time that there was a bigger push in Japan for Japanese media to come out on more Americanized consoles, right? The Xbox 360 or the Xbox brand entirely was kind of like a wasteland for like JRPGs and stuff like that. So there was a big push to kind of expand into that. So you have the creator of Final Fantasy with the art director and creator of Dragon Quest being, why am I drawing a blank on his name? Same guy who's like Dragon Ball Z and all that kind of stuff, like Chrono Trigger. So him and the creator of Final Fantasy, like, you got pretty much a dream project, and they created this game called Blue Dragon, and it's a rather obscure RPG, and it's only on the Xbox 360. It's a lot like Dragon Quest, but if it was made by the guy who did Final Fantasy, that's pretty much the best way to describe it. I'm sure people who played it can tell me, but not a lot of people got around to playing it, so if that sells you anything.
No, I don't think I've even heard of it. I've heard, I understand where Mistwalker comes from. Oh, boy.
Yeah. So what do you think for Loose?
See, this could go either way, because I feel like if it was good, you'd hear about it a lot more.
Maybe.
Which means I would have heard of it to begin with. Or it could just be flop, so it's not that expensive. I'm going to say around $120.
Okay. So a loose copy goes for about $30.
Okay, so it was one of those.
What do you what do you think a complete copy goes for?
$90.
$30.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so like average loose prices was about, so I kind of round up or down, obviously, but yeah, loose is about $27 and complete's about $32.
Wow.
This was my wild card entry.
No. Yeah, no kidding.
So yes, something rather obscure. And you know what? I haven't heard that it's bad, but not like super groundbreaking by any means, right? It's kind of like, I don't know if you remember a game that came out pretty early in the Switch's lifetime. Is I Am Setsuna, I think?
Yep.
And it was one of like the Square kind of indie project games, and a lot of people were saying it was kind of like Chrono Trigger, and it just like wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It's kind of like one of those. And
it had more popularity on PC.
Yeah. Maybe it's not I Am Setsuna, I'm not sure. But all the same. It's one of those situations, right? And yeah, poor old Blue Dragon, it wasn't bad, but it didn't blow anyone away, and, the collector's market seems to reflect it. And being a 360 game, right? Like, I knew you would be super stumped with a 360 game, because what the fuck is valuable for the 360? Damn near nothing, but sometimes things are, what the fuck?
Like, I figured 120 would be high, but did we have like an Earthbound situation where it was sold poor and now it's well respected, or is it? I mean, you hear about Earthbound, you don't hear about Blue Dragon.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not exactly an Earthbound. I would say, if anything, it's like Arcana. This looks kind of good, is it? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, what do you got next?
Okay, so I'm pulling off my list randomly now, just to mix up variety. This was on the PS2, and I think it might have had a 360 release. I could be wrong.
This has quite the collector's market now. The PS2 is almost like the new GameCube when it comes to expensive prices.
Yes, and these games have been expensive for a while. It's part of a series, part of a popular series. I'm never going to own it, although I wish I could. And the HD remake was absolutely abysmal. That is Silent Hill 3. The original Silent Hill 3. I was going to go 2, and it's like, we know that's good. Silent Hill 3.
Silent Hill 2 is the Sonic 2 of Silent Hills. And yes, that does make sense somehow.
Yeah. What? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Silent Hill 3 follows Heather Mason, the daughter from the first game, because 2 was completely separate from 1 and 3. And it just kind of continues the Harry Mason or Mason family story with the cult of Silent Hill. Pretty good game.
Not yet.
How much do you think,
Luce? Silent Hills. I don't know if I ever will. Maybe I will. I am intrigued, but I'm not like... Well, let's see how Silent Hill 2 Remake shapes up, which is a scary thing to put a basis on.
I'll say this. You should at least give... Because I don't think you played a Resident Evil either.
No.
You should at least try a Resident Evil and a Silent Hill game out.
So I think my Resident Evil I want to try is 4, which I know... It's kind of like, if between trying, like, 2 different games, right? But
yep.
I think that's my, like, dip my toe into the franchise. And as for Silent Hill, 1 or 2 seems pretty intriguing. I know a fair bit about 3. And I know 3 was very well beloved by its fans. 4, I believe, was the not-so-much one, right?
That's kind of the downfall. It has a mixed fan base.
Yeah, and then everything
2
beyond
is
that...
the fan favorite. 3 is respected. 1 isn't talked about too much.
Do you want to know what Silent Hills, like the franchise and its evolution, is eerily similar to? The Mana franchise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's got a very similar curve to it. Okay.
Except the Mana's 4th game was pretty good.
Depends on what you consider 4th.
Legends.
Okay. Because 4th could also be Dawn. Depends on how the release is, right? Because you got to think. So it would have been Secret of Mana, Legend of Mana, or no, it would have been Final Fantasy. But anyway, getting off track. So Silent Hill 3, you said specifically for the PS2?
Yep.
Luce, I'm going to say $90.
More. We are sitting at $156.
Okay. Expensive, but again, not absurd. Complete prices get a little bit weirder when you go from straight up cardboard box to like shell case,
and also disc to cartridge, and vice versa.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. I can't see it being any more than $250.
Yeah, $209.
Okay, so I wasn't too far off that time.
Nope, not that time. No. You were pretty close on the complete in box, anyways.
Yeah, so that's kind of in the price range that I would call respected but accessible.
Yes.
For collectors, you could still, you're going to have to think about this purchase, but it's a purchase that can be made without, hopefully, jeopardizing your home lifestyle.
Yes.
Please, people, do not jeopardize your home lifestyle. There are ways around it.
Yeah. So one rule I had when I was really into retro game collecting is I wouldn't spend more than $70 on a game. And I usually made sure that was like a game I really wanted. So one example was Super Metroid.
Yep.
$70.
That's about what I would expect it, yeah.
So it's why I never got Final Fantasy 3 or 6, whatever you want to call it, for the Super Nintendo.
On the cheap end, that was like $90 to $120.
Yep, and it's more now. And it's... Again, if I'm paying the actual developer and people who made it, sure. If I'm just paying scalper prices and whatnot, no.
I think the most I've dropped on one game... See, I want to say like 130. And that was for Boktai 2. And that's just for just cartridge, right? But that's kind of a special case too, right? And that's one of my few, the ones that I actually went on eBay for, so...
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. And now, like, I personally think it's just fun to talk about, but as far as retro gaming, like, well, gaming, yes. Retro collecting, I don't really do it as much these days. It's just a little absurd. Well, good people, have you heard these prices?
Yes.
So,
A shoot 'em up is $1,500.
Yeah. Speaking of retro games, by which I mean not, this is a game that we both have in our collection. A game that we can say we've recently called back to. You were playing not long ago, actually. And that is The Messenger for Nintendo Switch. Yeah, so this has a limited release. And now, this is the one when I mentioned earlier I had one with a variant. And so it was sold by two people around the same time. It was sold by Limited Run and Special Reserve. And we both have the Limited Run copies, I believe.
The Limited Run. Okay, so one was purple, one was like a sunset.
Yeah, and I believe we have the sunset ones.
Yes.
So,
which I think is the more expensive one.
So actually, we'll get there, but I have the prices of both variants just for the sake of argument. But they're close, but also far in weird ways. So we're just gonna go based off of it doesn't matter which one. What do you think the Messenger's going for loose these days?
250.
Overshot.
Okay.
Yeah,
is that close to collectors or the completed box?
That is actually pretty spot on in the middle, actually, because I'll just go into the whole details of why it's just weird in general, right?
Okay.
So knowing that you're close with the complete, what would you say loose is?
Loose probably 200.
Okay. Still fairly overshot. So
really.
Maybe not too much, actually, now that I think about it. So the limited run version of the loose copy goes for $185. And the special reserve copy goes for about $162. So about a $20 difference, right? Ish.
Yeah.
So you weren't too far off from the limited variant. And now where it gets weird is the limited run complete copy is cheaper at about $230, and the special reserve one's about $270.
Huh.
Why? But also, it kind of sucks.
Weird.
I'm as much as I'm super proud to have it, and need to see the number go up. It is kind of sad that the Messenger's not more accessible, at least physically, because it's fucking great.
Oh, it is wonderful. The second half is not as good as the first half, but it's still great.
It doesn't mean it's bad, yeah. But that first half,
Sea of Stars is wonderful.
God. Yes, and Sea of Stars, for those who don't know, is connected in some way that I don't know, and if I elaborate, spoilers might happen, so we're just going to move on from that.
Yeah, same universe, and it's apparent.
Yeah. So, what do you got next?
That's so weird. Okay, next is one that you've actually talked about. I'm pretty sure I have on my shelf here, actually. And it's for the Game Boy Advance. It's Final Fantasy V Advance.
Ooh.
What can I say about this aside from we've talked so many times about Final Fantasy games, and this was kind of, if I'm not mistaken, this is the one that you went all the way to the store for and waited for them to actually open the box that they were going to stock the shelves with.
No, that was actually Final Fantasy 3 on the DS.
That was 3 on the DS. Damn.
But 3 and 5 were the ones I challenged you to. So
yes.
I could see how you could get those mixed up.
It was around the same time that we were talking about it. But yeah, I knew it was one of them. I just didn't remember which one. It's I hope it's this one, because that would be hilarious. So Final Fantasy V Advance. You've never actually finished Final Fantasy V, have you?
No, I have not, but I do know some things about Final Fantasy V Advance that differs from all the other versions of Final Fantasy V.
Of course, because as many times as they re-release some of these, they just keep changing it. Well, it's the George Lucas effect.
So 5 Advance was actually... No, it wasn't the first time that we actually got Final Fantasy V, because we did get it on the PS1 in the... I think it was called the Crystal Chronicles, and it had a PlayStation version of Final Fantasy 4 and 5 on it, and they are the worst way to play these games. A turn-based RPG on the Super Nintendo, but with PlayStation load times, dreadful. Just dreadful. Yeah, so Final Fantasy V Advance would have been the first proper release that Final Fantasy V ever got on this side of the world, and it also has exclusive content. Yeah, there's a post-game dungeon And in it, you can unlock, I think, 2 new jobs. And it's either 2 or 4 new jobs. And like, there's a whole new like super boss and dungeon and all that. So it does have exclusive content. Is the content worth it? I don't know. And now with the advanced versions and all of the Final Fantasy advanced versions, there were a couple caveats. Like the music's obviously not as good because much as I love some Game Boy Advance soundtracks, like it can crunch the shit out of some of them, right? And the Super Nintendo did sound better than the Game Boy Advance. It just had more power to it for at least the audio.
Yeah,
It wasn't like, you know, a speaker the size of your thumbnail, so it had a little bit more to work with. Now, I own Final Fantasy V Advance, so if I had to guess, loose copy's probably about $80.
Okay, you have overshot. It's 54.
Okay, because I know it's not the most beloved. So
No.
complete in box can't be any more than 130.
111.
Okay,
so
so
you're pretty
yeah,
close.
I wasn't far off with that. Yeah, because it's one of those, like, it's not holding the value like Pokemon by any means, but it's a game that like people would like to have in their collection. So yeah,
and there's also the Pixel remaster now.
Yep.
So there's
that
other
would also
versions
affect the
that
price.
you can buy.
But now the Pixel remaster doesn't have that additional content, right? So that's kind of
This is
where
true.
it does hold some value of its own individuality, but there's also quite a few drawbacks with it. So that's not bad. That's actually something like, that's in the range that if I saw at a store and I was specifically hunting for it, I would not do it, but think about doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's hard to afford these things all the time. And all right, so I have 2 more. How many more do you have?
I got 5 more.
5 more, Jesus. All right, well, I'm going to go with, this one's come up on the show a few times here. And in saying that, you might already know what I'm going to talk about. It's a game that's near and dear to my heart, and I will bring it up anytime I can possibly do so. Do you have any guesses as to what game that is?
Oh, God. Surprisingly, I don't, unless you're talking about the Collection of Mana series.
No. I'm talking about Balloon Fight again.
Yeah.
Yep. I love this game.
Okay, yeah.
I love this game
I
so
should have
much.
known.
Yep. And so, as we've iterated before, Balloon Fight, it is a Black Box NES game. Check our episode out on the Black Box NES games and launch titles somewhere in your local Spotify. And
it's in the backlog along with the backlog episode. That's a shill and a half, sorry.
Oh man, it's all over this little podcast of ours. So all the same, we got a pretty, I don't know if I would say common, but not uncommon NES game, but definitely one of the older NES games, right? And these are all sorts of factors. I'm not going to say it was super popular or super beloved. It is by me, but maybe not by everyone. And I'll be honest, I never actually really saw Balloon Fight when I was a kid.
Even now, it's hard to come across a Balloon Fight game in one of the retro stores.
I don't
Depending
see them
on where
too
you
often.
live, of course, but...
So, I also know that Balloon Fight is one of those few games that I believe falls under that obscure side of the collecting market where it's like, the 3-pin or the 5-pin NES games?
Right.
I do not have any of that particular information, as far as I'm aware, affecting my prices. I just have what price charting said it was. So I'm not about to get wacky on it. So
loose.
Yeah,
I'm going to guess 35?
You are real close, actually. That's a pretty solid guess, because, loose copy of Balloon Fight, $40.
I was going to say 42.
Yeah,
Shit.
So that's,
and it's like, that might be a bit too much.
That's not bad at all.
Complete in box. I don't know what black box complete in box games go for anymore.
Right, this is a tricky one.
This is very much the 3 screw variant. If it's only $40, because the 5 screws are very rare and hard to get by because that's the first iteration, and oftentimes the 5 screw has the converter in it as well.
And so they go for a couple $100 more often than not. So.
Yeah. So completed box Balloon Fight. I'm gonna say 90.
Oh, you're off by a digit or two.
Am I too low?
You are quite a bit too low, yes. It actually averages about $2.90.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that box, you got to think. We're talking first iteration NES games. That box is worth way more than the game itself.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, which is a shame, because I would love to have a complete in-box copy of Balloon Fight, but I'm going to settle for it, and I'm surprised I haven't bought it yet. Going on a bit of a random tangent, maybe we could do an episode about these one day. It would kind of just be rehashing the black box ones. But the Game Boy Advance Classic Series that had the re-releases of the NES games, and in Japan they got a copy of Balloon Fight, and the complete box, it's fucking adorable. It's like a little plastic toy sleeve, like the checkout lane toys and whatnot, and it's got a little cardboard box with the little Famicom Balloon Fight on it. Like, oh, I want that in my collection. Plus, it's Game Boy Advance. I'm the Game Boy person. It's perfect.
Yep, that's fair enough.
So that's my what do you got now?
So we're gonna talk Game Boy Advance now.
Sick.
With Doom for the GBA.
Oh, this one's not cheap. No, wait. Okay, so Doom 2 for the Game Boy Advance. What more do we got to say? It's Doom on the Game Boy Advance. Doom's on everything. It's on your fucking microwave.
It's on your pregnancy test. I don't even know if I've seen gameplay. I'm sure I have of the Doom for Game Boy Advance. I don't know how it runs.
Doom
if
1
it's anything like
on the Game Boy Advance runs like hot garbage.
Is it better or worse than the Super Nintendo?
It's worse than the 32X.
Oh.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
Doom...
is it worse than the Atari Jaguar?
I don't think so. I don't think that's possible.
Okay.
Get out of my house, Atari.
So it's not the worst, but it's not good.
I'm not going to say unplayable. I'm going to say not enjoyable in the slightest. Now, that said, Doom 2 on the Game Boy Advance is probably one of the most impressive first-person shooters on the Game Boy Advance in how it performs and operates and everything. So for Doom 1, I'm going to say $20 for loose.
Okay, you are off. It's $72.
Piss. Okay. In that case, for complete, $170.
$125.
Jack, god damn it. I just know it's bad.
Under and over.
At least it's not expensive as well. No, I know Doom 2 commands a bit of a price, because that was one that was on my list for a bit until I started actually looking, and then it wasn't on my list anymore.
Fair.
Yeah. I've got one more, so I will let you say one more before I give my one more.
All right, so this is just kind of a toss in one, just because I didn't expect this. Futurama on the PS2.
Oh. You know what? Actually, something I meant to include on my list and I didn't, so I'm glad that this is here, so licensed games are weird when it comes to the world of collecting, right? Because a lot of licensed games are just bad, and a lot of licensed games that are bad reflect bad game prices, as they fucking should. But licensed games are in this weird limbo of, like, a lot of bad games get re-releases or even franchises get continued. Bubsy still fucking here.
They're looking for an indie developer to continue it on.
I'm not surprised. They're just going to take anything that they could get. He just won't fucking... You know what would be funny, actually? If they
made 9 games?
I was just going to say, if Bubsy got exactly 9 games, then I'm like, that's the greatest joke in gaming. Oh my god.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
9 flops and he's dead.
That would be so good. But,
I hope that happens now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible. I hope that happens now.
But with licensed games, once the license is taken away, like, that game's gone to time unless some kind of miracle happens, like, the Scott Pilgrim game and stuff like that. So, so what console I have to ask for the Futurama game first?
PlayStation 2. Yeah.
That's the cheaper one. I know this game did not do well. It's okay, but it's not, like, good. It's not offensively bad. It's just not great. But it is technically a canon episode of Futurama.
Yes.
And I think it was one of the DVD releases actually has all of the cutscenes from the game and poses it as a lost episode of Futurama.
Oh,
It just
really?
cuts. Yeah, it just cuts very awkwardly because like they're cutscenes, right? So it's like scene happens, and then suddenly we're here now, and it's a different scene. But at the same time, like it is acknowledged by Futurama.
That is
So with
funny.
all that rambling aside, PS2 loose, $80.
Try again.
Higher.
Yep.
Okay, so it's caught up with PlayStation 2. $200. I mean Xbox.
$274
For a loose copy?
for a loose copy.
Holy fuck. PS2 used to be maybe it was Xbox that was the cheaper one, but for some reason I thought it had less of a they just could both be absurd.
I'm going to say the Xbox was probably the cheaper one because I know notoriously Xbox is easier to collect for.
Typically, yes,
Budget-wise.
but that's why I think like it could be one of the few exceptions is the rare Xbox games. But okay, complete $470.
$343.
Okay, because so you find a lot more with the disc and clamshells. The complete price isn't as absurd. Like you're paying more for the game than you are the packaging because the packaging is a little bit more long-standing, right?
Yes.
Damn, Futurama for the PS2 commanding like fucking Evo prices out here.
Right?
I say that now, but like the last I checked, Evo was about $300. It's probably way more now.
Yep. Probably.
Oh, Evo's an okay game. That's one that I would love to see on like the SNES Online. And this is where stuff like the SNES Online is great. Because like if you're not going to emulate it, please God, Nintendo, emulate it for us.
Yep.
All right.
Pretty much.
My last game of the night, and this is an interesting direction for this one to take because it's for the original Game Boy. And it's not a super late, but a later release for the Game Boy. And it is a sequel to an incredibly popular game, but not the second game in the series. No hints? No.
Original Game Boy?
Original Game Boy, yep.
Does it have to do with Metal Gear Solid?
It does not. That was Game Boy Color, and yes, that is also an expensive game. No, this is Kirby's Dream Land 2.
Ah,
yeah.
Okay.
So because it went Kirby's Dream Land, which is a surprisingly affordable game, which is great because Kirby's Dream Land is like the Game Boyest of Game Boy games, next to like Tetris.
Yep.
And it's pretty reasonable price. And then the second game in the series was Kirby's Adventure for the NES, which I think is getting up there, but like maybe a little bit more than like a loose copy of Balloon Fight, right? Like it's not a stupid expensive game, but like maybe $80-$90.
Yep.
Kirby's got that respectful price. And then Kirby's Dream Land 2 is arguably a better game than Kirby's Dream Land because it introduced the ride animals, it introduced the copy abilities were in it. They weren't introduced in it, they were an adventure, but first one on the Game Boy. And here's Dream Land 2. It's a solid game, but don't come up much, do it.
No.
Now, and then when you think of things like Kirby's Dream Land 3 for the Super Nintendo, that's a stupid expensive game because it was a really late release for the Super Nintendo.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So, with all that in mind, what do you think a copy
Kirby's
of
Dream Land 2?
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's going to be around the 60 mark. That seems a little high, but I'm going to stick with it. That's what I said.
You are correct. It is a little high, not terribly, but it goes for about $40.
Okay.
Yep. And now for complete, and this is when we are getting into that peculiar territory of boxes don't last as long and usually cost more.
Yeah, I'm going to say about $250.
You're heading in the right direction, but you're just not quite there. A
Oh.
box copy goes for about $350.
Wow.
That's Kirby commanding a pretty solid price.
Good for Kirby. And it's not Superstar.
Good for Kirby, and yeah, it's not Superstar. And with that, yeah, I've reached the end of my list of random prices, which I would like to think was a pretty fluid list. I think you still got a couple more, right?
Yep, I'm just going to name these last two off. I do have a third, but it's Sega. We'll ignore them.
Sega!
Oh, no. Yeah, we brought Sonic up once this episode.
Yep.
Next game is Soul Blazer for the Super Nintendo. This is the first of the Quintet trilogy.
Okay, so
action RPG.
Yeah, action RPG, and the best way to describe it to people who don't know, because it's kind of hard to describe this gameplay of Soul Blazer without any context, but it's not dissimilar to like Link's Awakening mixed with ActRaiser.
See, I haven't played ActRaiser, so I don't.
So like that top-down kind of action combat, but also with like a bit of like city building, but it happens more automatically.
Yeah.
It's a very unique game, and yeah, the Quintet trilogy or quadrilogy, if you want to include Robotrek, another game I was thinking about throwing in here, but
fair enough.
I'm gonna guess Soul Blazer Loose is about $130.
Close. 147.
Ooh, all right, and
so making a complete in box,
$350.
Close, not as close. 403.
Okay, I can accept that. That's a good range.
Yes,
I feel like now I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but is Illusion of Gaia cheaper? I feel like it would be.
Yes.
Not by a lot, but it would be cheaper than.
I don't know for
Soul
complete
Blazer.
in box. Actually, complete in box. So when I got my copy of Illusion of Gaia or Illusion of Time in the Great Britain,
in the Pale region,
I got my copy of Illusion of Gaia loose for about 50.
Yep.
And at the time, there was a complete in box version that was about 120, I think.
Okay.
That was about 2020. Actually,
so I would feel like Illusion of Gaia would be about 200 to 300, right?
Complete in box.
Yeah, that sounds about right. All right, what's the last one you got here?
Last one is a fan favorite of old style FromSoft. Armored Core for the PS1.
That's not what I thought you were going to say.
No, you thought it was going to be Kingsfield. No, I turned it around.
But you said something that I'm pretty sure is more expensive. Especially right now. Oh my god.
Armored Core. Yeah, they just came out with Armored Core 6. Yeah, it's doing pretty good from what I hear.
Armored Core was dormant for what, like 10, 13 years? Something like that? There's like a couple on the PS1 and then a couple on the PS2. I think one or two on the PS3. Okay, and this is the first Armored Core.
Yep.
Oh.
The PS1.
Loose. Okay, because we're on the last one, I'm going to ask a gauging question before I make my guess.
Is not the most expensive or cheapest on my list.
No, I thought it would be, but is it it's not. Or less than Tron-Bon?
Less.
Okay. I'm going to say loose, $160.
Not too far off, but you are over. It's 118.
Okay, but over 100, I figured it was much. Complete, 220.
Not too far off, but once again over. It's 198.
Okay, so pretty close to 200.
Not nearly as bad as I would have thought it would be.
It falls into the category that it's not like the respected expensive that I mentioned. Like, loose would be like around 70 and complete being around like 150, 200. That's what I would call obscure expensive. Like that's a fair price for an Atlas game, I would say.
Yep.
Now, it's getting into that weird territory. And Armored Core was definitely an obscure franchise.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I have one other thing written down here that I was saving for the end. Because it's not so much a game, and it's not a console, and it's not really a peripheral. It is one of those weird situations, and they paired up a few times. Sharp and Nintendo. And Sharp made
is this the TV?
This is the TV with a built-in NES. They also had the SF1, which had the Super Nintendo built in, but this is the NES with the 4 legs as a base that I had to use because it was too heavy.
I can't remember. Was this retail Or was this primarily in like hotels and stuff? Or did it just end up getting sold to a bunch of hotels?
So the one with the Super Nintendo was sold to hotels and retail stores, not to sell, but to demo stuff.
Yeah.
This is the one that was actually commercially available for everyone.
Interesting.
So I did have the model number. I didn't write it down. But
So
yeah,
there's
so
obviously... I'm
it has
guessing
like
we don't have a complete in-box price for this. It's just custom TV.
We
What?
do.
Oh, that makes this so much wet here. Okay, so, you know, I'm not going to be saying, like, I'm up and up on the TV collecting scene, but I do know that consoles keep creeping up year after year, and obscure consoles, they can go for some stupid prices, especially something like this. And I love it because, like, this is from the era that, you know, like, it's a convenience item for the whole family.
Although it still had the pin connector issue, as the NES did.
That's funny.
And its patent on the actual TV is the exact same one as the SNES lockout chip.
Now, I know that with old televisions, a lot of them, they're not exactly the easiest to get parts for anymore, and a lot of them just stopped functioning, right? Which, of course, adds to scarcity. I'm going to say, unit alone, $4,000.
No.
No?
No. $1,844.
Wait, how much?
$1,844.
So a little under half of what my guess was. Still, stupid expensive, but...
complete in box.
We're going to be talking over $10,000 with this one.
No.
No?
No.
Huh. Okay, then I will guess again at $5,800.
Okay, still off. You're shooting low. It is $6,454.
That's an expensive old TV that I'm guessing has probably a screen smaller than the laptop I'm using right now.
Probably.
Huh. Amazing.
Oh.
And what an incredible thing to have, though. It's kind of like my dream collectible in that space would be, and it's the dumbest thing in the world, but it's the Game Boy Advance that is built into the car DVD player kind of thing. And I want to say that was also made by Sharp, but I'm not sure.
Probably, because Sharp and Nintendo's do work on a lot of things together. The screens in Nintendo DS's were Sharp, actually.
Oh, interesting.
They also had we just talked about the NES. They also had the Super Nintendo built in, which was sold to hotels and stuff. That was all Sharp.
Yep.
So.
Interesting.
But yeah, I had to toss that in just because it's one of those weird anomalies.
That is a very weird anomaly, and I have to say this whole little price banter. I mean, like I said, this episode's gonna age like milk, but at the same time,
fun.
This was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed this. I hope everyone listening to it learned a little bit of either about some new games or just how stupidly priced they are.
Why you should emulate? I mean,
what? If games seem interesting, I should just play them by any means necessary. No, kinda,
well, if they don't give it to us, then
we gotta take it.
Yep.
Yeah, thievery. I don't know about you. I am cooking in this box. I think I need to say this is a topic for today.
Yes, that is. Yeah. I think that's fair. That's going to be a wrap.
Any closing thoughts?
I don't have that kind of money.
No, me neither.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode. It was a different one. It was fun. It was weird, and it's like Tyler said, it's going to age like milk. If you want to follow us on social medias, you can find us at Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Instagram at OptionalBossPC. And we'll catch you next time.
Bye!